Your parallel self. Introduction. There comes a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when you realize you are not fully steering your life. Your lips move, but something else speaks through you. Your feet walk, but they trace the same tired path, again and again, as though rehearsing a script written long before you knew how to read. You wake up every morning believing you are new, yet the same patterns rise with the sun. Fear dressed as caution, doubt disguised as logic, procrastination masquerading as rest. You call it personality. The ancients called it possession, because what you call you may not be you at all. It may be an echo, an old frequency still running its program long after the moment that created it has passed. It may be the ghost of who you once were, still playing chess with your future. Most people never see the board. They think life is a battle against circumstance or luck or other people. But the real opponent is internal, subtle, invisible, and intimate. It knows your weaknesses because it is you. It speaks in your voice, finishes your sentences, and whispers, "Stay here, it's safe." This is the version of you that learned how to survive, not how to evolve. It was forged by repetition, the thoughts you replayed, the emotions you refused to feel, the identities you rehearsed so many times they became armor. And because consciousness creates form, those repetitions became an entity, a living pattern of energy that still governs your choices. You think you left the past behind, but the past learned how to walk. It wears your memories like skin. It feeds on your attention, thrives on your reactions, and starves when you grow still. Every relapse into old habits, every time you say, "I knew this would happen," every déjà vu moment of self-betrayal, that's not a coincidence. It's a strategy. The old self moves first, and unless you learn how it thinks, it will continue to win. But this is not a war story. It's a story of awareness, of how to turn inner conflict into mastery. Because the moment you recognize that the enemy is not evil, but outdated, you stop fighting and start outsmarting. The ancients said the universe is mental, that all things are born first in the mind, and only then descend into matter. Your reality is a projection of consciousness, filtered through belief, emotion, and memory. Change the filter, and the world rearranges itself. But you can't change what you can't see. You can't defeat what hides in plain sight. To outsmart the version of you that's still running your life, you must first learn to see it, to study its patterns, its tone, its timing. Like a grandmaster observing an opponent's strategy, you begin to notice the repetition. How fear always moves first. How doubt always sacrifices your dreams to protect your comfort. How every move is designed to keep you predictable. Awareness is the counter move. Stillness is the strategy. When you stop reacting, the old self loses control of the board. When you stop feeding it attention, it loses its power supply. You begin to reclaim the game. In truth, this is not about becoming someone new. It's about ceasing to be what you no longer are. The new self is not created. It's revealed, uncovered beneath layers of conditioning and emotional residue. It's the consciousness that has always watched from behind the eyes, waiting for you to notice that the puppet strings were in your own hands all along. Outsmarting the old self means learning the language of energy, understanding that emotion is currency, attention is investment, and thought is design. You are not the pawn on the board. You are the player, the architect, the law that moves unseen. And once you realize that, the game begins to bend in your favor. There's a quote from the Tao that says, "When I let go of who I am, I become what I might be." This audiobook is about letting go, the sacred art of psychological outmaneuvering. You will learn how the old self thinks, how it provokes, manipulates and deceives, how it disguises fear as intuition and chaos as passion. You will learn to predict its moves before they happen, and in that knowing, you will become untouchable. So as we begin, take a breath, not to relax, but to remember. The one who breathes, the watcher behind the thoughts, has never been bound. It's the strategist within you, the higher intelligence waiting patiently to reclaim its throne. From this moment on, you are no longer a victim of your programming. You are the observer who sees the pattern, and the one who sees always wins. Chapter 1. The Invisible Puppeteer. There is a version of you that wakes before dawn, not to dream, but to decide. It chooses which thoughts you will think today, which emotions will surface, and which desires will quietly dissolve before you can act on them. You don't see it, you only feel its pull, like invisible strings guiding your choices, whispering, "Not yet. You're not ready. Stay small." This is the puppeteer of your life, the invisible version of you that still believes it's protecting you by keeping you exactly where you are. It learned its role long ago, when you were hurt and swore to never feel that pain again, when you were rejected and decided safety was more important than truth, when you failed once and concluded that risk was danger. It built a system, a perfect algorithm of avoidance, and then it took control. You call it instinct, you call it intuition, but it isn't wisdom, it's programming. It's your old frequency, replaying a symphony of survival, and until you can hear its tune without dancing to it, you'll never conduct your own life. Most people spend decades mistaking repetition for destiny. They blame circumstances, karma, or luck, never realizing that the true culprit is the echo of their own past. Every time you hesitate before speaking your truth, every time you choose comfort over creation, every time you sabotage what feels too good to be true, that's the old self operating the strings. It has mastered disguise. It hides behind logic, behind humility, behind the illusion of being realistic. But what is realism, if not a loyalty oath to your limitations? The puppeteer thrives on predictability. It needs you to behave as you always have, because that is how it continues to exist. It is an energetic entity, built from all your repeated thoughts and emotions, a structure of consciousness that feeds on familiarity. The Hermetic law of mentalism declares, all is mind, which means every pattern you repeat becomes a living form in the mental plane, a self-replicating echo that eventually governs you. And that echo doesn't want to die, so it keeps you looping through déjà vu relationships, recurring fears, recurring dreams, recurring endings. Each cycle whispers the same command: don't move. Pause for a moment. Think of the last time you said, "I don't know why I keep doing this." That sentence was the sound of the puppeteer tightening its grip. Because when you act against your own awareness, it's not weakness, it's possession. Yes, possession. Not by demons, but by data. By the energetic residue of every emotion you never resolved, the anger you swallowed, the guilt you nurtured, the shame you carried like sacred armor. Each one became a thread, and together they formed the strings. That's why the same arguments repeat in different faces, why every new beginning feels familiar, why your manifestations rise, flicker, and then collapse. Because you're still being moved by a consciousness that belongs to who you used to be. The puppeteer is clever. It speaks with your voice. It says things like, "Be practical. Don't get your hopes up. It's safer this way." But beneath those phrases is only one silent message: don't evolve. To outsmart this invisible force, you must first observe it without obedience. Don't fight it. It feeds on resistance. Instead, watch it like a scientist observing a specimen under glass. When you notice hesitation, name it. When fear arises, don't analyze it. See it. Recognition steals its camouflage. Awareness is the scissors that cut the strings, because the moment you can witness the puppet without identifying as it, you separate consciousness from conditioning. That space, that sacred pause between impulse and awareness, is your doorway to freedom. Each time you catch yourself about to repeat an old story, stop. Say inwardly, "This is the old program running." The act of naming creates distance. Distance invites choice, and choice is power. Remember, attention is nourishment. Whatever you stop feeding begins to dissolve. Withdraw attention from the familiar reaction, the sigh, the fear, the complaint, and you starve the entity that feeds on it. It will panic. It will scream. It will tempt you with urgency. Ignore it. You are learning to sit in stillness while the strings fall away. This is not an overnight victory. It's a quiet rebellion. You're training your consciousness to remember itself. Every time you choose awareness over reaction, your old self loses its throne. Every time you breathe before responding, you reclaim authorship. The puppeteer begins to weaken. And one day, without fanfare, you'll move through the same trigger that once owned you, and feel nothing. No fear, no resistance, just peace. That's when you'll know the strings have snapped. The puppeteer still exists, but it no longer commands. It has become what it always was, a shadow dancing in your light. Because the greatest illusion of all is that you are battling something outside of you. In truth, you are playing a game of consciousness against the ghost of who you used to be. And in the next chapter, you'll discover the real trap that keeps you handcuffed to that ghost. The frequency of the past, still pulsing in your body like a forgotten spell. Chapter 2. The Handcuffs of Frequency. You can leave the house, you can change your city, your job, your circle of friends, and still something invisible pulls you back to the same reality, different faces, same patterns, different season, same emotions. It's as if an unseen gravity keeps dragging you into familiar outcomes. That gravity has a name: frequency, the silent rhythm of your inner state. It is the vibration your emotions generate, the signal your subconscious transmits to existence, and whether you realize it or not, you are handcuffed to it. You are bound not by chains of steel, but by resonance, the matching of energy between who you are and what you experience. Your outer world can only ever reflect your inner tone. If your frequency hums with fear, life will echo with uncertainty. If your frequency carries peace, life will bow to its stillness. But here's the paradox. You cannot escape a frequency you continue to feed, and what you feed most is what you feel most. The old version of you, the one we met in the previous chapter, survives through vibration. It does not live in your mind, it lives in your nervous system. It's not an idea, it's a pulse. It hides beneath your habits, disguised as tension in your chest, restlessness in your stomach, fatigue that no amount of sleep can cure. Every emotion you've ever suppressed is still vibrating somewhere inside your body, frozen in time. These frequencies accumulate like dust on a mirror, blurring your perception of reality. And because the universe mirrors your dominant vibration, you keep reliving the same story under new disguises. You are not cursed. You are simply resonating. And resonance is the law of this realm. Everything you encounter, every person, every event, every opportunity or obstacle meets you at the exact frequency you emit. This is why you can't simply think your way out of an old life. Your thoughts belong to the mind, but your vibration belongs to your state of being. Until your emotions change, Your world remains loyal to your past. Think of the moments you tried to change. You said, "This time it's different." And for a while it was. You felt inspired. You took action. You saw progress. Then something unseen pulled you back. The mind blamed discipline, but the truth is simpler. You never changed your frequency. You changed behavior, not vibration. You spoke new affirmations, but felt the same fear. You visualized abundance while your body hummed with scarcity. That's why your life keeps returning to its default settings. Your subconscious acts like a thermostat, not of temperature, but of vibration. No matter how far you stretch, it will pull you back to the energetic climate it knows best. Because comfort isn't peace, it's familiarity. And the old self will always choose familiar pain over unknown freedom. You can't run from energy that lives inside you. You can only transform it. So how do you unlock the handcuffs? You stop fighting the chains and start listening to them. Step 1. Feel. Emotion is energy in motion. What you refuse to feel, you keep alive. Sit with discomfort until it loses its story. When you no longer name a feeling as fear or anger, it becomes pure vibration again, and pure vibration can move. Step 2. Anchor in the body. Awareness must descend into form. Notice the breath. Notice the rhythm of your heartbeat. The body is not your cage, it's your tuning fork. As you breathe consciously, the body recalibrates, realigns, and retunes itself to a higher signal. Step 3. Choose a new frequency consciously. Emotion is a language. You can speak in joy, in gratitude, in confidence, but not as performance, as being. You don't have to think your way into love. You feel your way into it. The moment you embody a higher emotion without waiting for reality to justify it, you begin to command reality itself. Step 4. Hold. Every new frequency feels foreign at first, because freedom always does. Stay with it. Don't measure results. Don't chase signs. Your patience is proof of mastery. And slowly, the handcuffs rust and fall away. The old frequency will not die quietly. It will whisper through memories, through fatigue, through the temptation to check if things are changing. But each time you remain centered in your chosen state, you weaken its hold. The old you is not evil. It's outdated software running on emotional electricity. When you stop supplying the current, it shuts down. You don't have to destroy your past. You simply have to out-vibrate it. Reality is a mirror, and mirrors can't resist what they reflect. When you rise in frequency, the old reflection fades. One day you'll wake up, look around, and realize that nothing external trapped you. The key was always vibration, and you were always holding it, because the true prison was never circumstance. It was the emotional frequency that built the walls. And in the next chapter, you'll uncover how those emotional frequencies became a living entity within you, the birth of your inner double, the silent companion that still walks every step you take. Chapter 3. The birth of the inner entity. Somewhere between your thoughts and your emotions, something was born. Not flesh, not bone, but consciousness condensed into pattern. Each time you repeated the same story. I'm not enough. This always happens to me. They always leave. A thread of energy wrapped around your being, and as those threads multiplied, they began to weave something real. At first, it was invisible, an echo vibrating faintly through the corridors of your mind. But repetition gave it strength, emotion gave it form, and one day, without your awareness, it opened its eyes. You created it. You fed it with worry, sustained it with doubt, baptized it with fear. And now, it walks beside you. The old self, made alive by your attention. It does not live in some distant hell. It lives in your memory, your body, your breath. It is the phantom that stands between you and your evolution, not because it hates you, but because it needs you to keep existing. The Hermetic law of mentalism says, all is mind. That means everything that exists in the material world once existed as a thought, a vibration crystallized into form, and if you can create worlds through thought, you can also create entities through emotion. Your inner entity, the old version of you, is a structure of consciousness built through repetition and belief. It remembers everything you've ever been afraid of. It knows every justification, every rationalization, every emotional weakness. It has learned how to imitate you perfectly. That's why transformation feels like betrayal. When you try to change, you're not just leaving habits behind. You're leaving a living construct that's terrified of death. And because it cannot survive without you, it fights. Not with swords or curses, but with thoughts. Every time you move toward growth, it whispers, "You're being unrealistic." Every time you set a boundary, it says, "You'll end up alone." Every time you reach for something greater, it panics and pulls the strings of fear to keep you near. You are not imagining the resistance. You are feeling the self you created, fighting for its existence. Look closely at your recurring emotions. They're not random. They're memories trying to stay alive. The sadness that comes out of nowhere, the anxiety that has no clear cause, the nostalgia that paralyzes. These are the entity's ways of calling you back into its frequency. It doesn't know right from wrong. It only knows survival. It feeds on your focus, thrives on your reactions, and grows stronger each time you believe its voice. This is why, when you try to manifest a new reality, the old one seems to fight back. It's not the universe testing you. It's the entity trembling, because every time you choose awareness over emotion, you take its food away. And like any starving thing, it will scream, manipulate, provoke, plead. It will tell you that comfort is safety. Those old wounds deserve attention, forgiveness is weakness, but behind every message lies one primal fear: extinction. This is what spiritual warfare truly means. Not angels and demons in the clouds, but two frequencies within one being, each fighting for dominion. The old entity wants to preserve what is, the new consciousness wants to create what could be. And the battleground is your mind. To outsmart the entity, you must stop playing its game. Its weapon is emotion, its territory is reaction, so your first act of rebellion is stillness. When it speaks, don't argue. When it provokes, don't react. Silence steals its script. Begin observing your thoughts like an external voice. Ask, who is speaking right now, the creator or the creation? If the thought is laced with fear, doubt, or urgency, it's not the real you. It's the echo trying to reclaim attention. Meet it with awareness, not war. Say quietly within, "I see you." That single acknowledgement pierces its illusion. You disarm the entity not through resistance, but through recognition. Because the moment you recognize that the voice is not you, you reclaim authorship. Every act of observation steals energy from the old construct and redirects it to the present self, the true consciousness that witnesses all. Then, gently but firmly, feed your new identity. Speak words aligned with expansion. Feel emotions that harmonize with freedom. Visualize yourself beyond fear, not as fantasy, but as training. You are teaching the energetic field a new rhythm. Remember, the old entity can't survive in frequencies of peace. Peace is poison to its circuitry. When you remain calm, it dissolves. You were never fighting a demon. You were fighting your own creation. And that realization changes everything. Because creators don't fight their creations, they reform them. Every time you choose awareness over reaction, the entity becomes lighter. Every time you forgive yourself, you lose density. Eventually, it stops being an opponent and becomes a teacher, the shadow that reveals where light still needs to enter. That is the alchemy of transformation, turning resistance into revelation, turning fear into guidance, turning the ghost of the past into an ally of awakening. Because once you understand that your thoughts can create entities, you begin to see the hidden cost of your attention. In the next chapter, we'll explore the power that feeds every creation, attention, the true currency of reality, and how your focus either imprisons or frees you. Chapter 4. Attention, the currency of reality. If energy is the blood of the universe, attention is its heartbeat. Everything that exists, every habit, every emotion, every version of you, survives because you keep looking at it. Where your attention goes, your life grows. Where your attention withdraws, worlds collapse. Look around. Your entire reality is an architecture of focus. The job you have, the relationships you maintain, the emotions that revisit you, all of them were purchased with the same invisible currency, your awareness. Attention is not passive. It is a creative force condensed into direction. It's the divine spotlight of consciousness, and whatever it shines upon becomes matter. You don't need to cast spells or chant affirmations. You're already casting them every moment you choose what to notice. The problem is, most people don't choose. They react. And reaction is the bankruptcy of awareness. Your old self understands this better than you do. It knows that if it can control your attention, it can control your energy. And if it can control your energy, it can control your life. So it builds traps. It floods your mind with urgent thoughts. What if? What then? What will they think? It creates drama where none exists, manufactures tension where there should be calm, and magnifies small problems until they eclipse your peace. Why? Because it knows your attention is food. The more you feed it, the stronger it becomes. Your attention fuels the old frequency like oxygen to fire. You see, the old self doesn't care what you pay attention to, only that you keep paying. Fear, resentment, guilt, and obsession. They all generate energy. And as long as that energy flows toward the past keeps breathing. Every complaint is a deposit. Every worry is an offering. Every replay of an old memory is a tithe to a false god. You think you're thinking, but you're financing a ghost. Imagine walking into a grand cathedral of your own mind. Each emotion is a candle, each thought a prayer. And at the altar sits the idol of your past, carved from the stories you never questioned, crowned by the fears you never faced. Now imagine kneeling before it every morning without realizing it. Each sigh, each mental replay, each silent argument, another offering. And as you bow, it smiles, not because it hates you, but because you keep worshipping through your focus. The truth is painful. You become what you consistently observe. Attention is fusion. You cannot look at something repeatedly and remain separate from it. Every glance fuses your energy with its vibration. And so the more you stare at what you dislike, the deeper it roots into your field. You feed your problems with fascination. You strengthen your pain by studying it. You extend the life of your limitations by discussing them. What you look at, lives. The first law of spiritual economy is simple. Spend attention as if it were gold, because it is. Start by noticing where your focus drifts when you're not watching. Observe what captures your awareness when the mind is idle. Fear, regret, imagined conversations that never end. These are energy leaks. Step 1. Audit your focus. Ask, Does this thought build me or bind me? If it binds, withdraw. Detach like a landlord collecting rent from a tenant long overdue. Step 2. Redirect. Every time you catch yourself spiraling into an old emotion, don't fight it. Relocate your awareness. Shift it to something neutral or uplifting. The rhythm of your breath, the warmth of your hands, the feeling of being alive. Your attention is not a prisoner. It's a compass. Point it where you want reality to bloom. Step 3. Invest. Attention is not just defense, it's creation. When you consciously focus on gratitude, beauty, and inspiration, you begin to multiply those vibrations. The universe mirrors coherence. So the more coherent your focus becomes, the more your external world organizes itself around it. And finally, guard it. Guard your attention like a secret treasure, because in truth, it is one. The moment you give it to triviality, you disempower your destiny. Every moment of unconscious scrolling, gossip, or judgment is a leak in your creative field. Don't waste light on shadows. Attention is the altar of reality. Whatever you worship there becomes your world. If you kneel before fear, you inherit chaos. If you kneel before peace, you inherit order. If you kneel before love, the universe rearranges itself to resemble your devotion. Nothing outside of you has inherent power, only borrowed awareness. Even your suffering depends on you to keep remembering it. You don't defeat darkness by fighting it. You defeat it by starving it, by turning your gaze toward light and never looking back. This is not denial, it is design. You are not ignoring reality, you are reprogramming it. The one who masters attention masters energy, and the one who masters energy commands the visible world. So ask yourself each morning, what will I fund today with the currency of my awareness? What kingdom am I building with the gold of my gaze? Because everything you see is an investment, and everything you ignore is a debt forgiven. The old entity knows how to tempt your attention, but it also knows your true weakness, emotion. Because if attention funds reality, emotion fuels it. In the next chapter, you'll uncover how the old self feeds on your feelings and how to reclaim your emotional energy as the power source of creation. Chapter 5. The Emotional Economy. Emotion is the electricity of the soul. It powers every thought, every word, every action. It colors the invisible with meaning. And yet, most people treat emotion as something that happens to them rather than something they can direct. But here's the secret. Your emotions are not random. They are investments. Each feeling you indulge in, fear, joy, resentment, gratitude, deposits energy into the frequency that produced it. And what you invest in emotionally, you expand. Emotion is energy in motion, and energy always seeks expression. So when you dwell in anger, life gives you new reasons to be angry. When you breathe gratitude, life offers new things to appreciate. The universe is perfectly impartial. It doesn't reward goodness or punish negativity. It simply multiplies what you feel most often. Your emotions are your currency. And every day, you are spending yourself in a particular reality. The old self knows this law better than you. It feeds on your emotions like a parasite on light. Each burst of frustration, each sigh of regret, each wave of fear, it converts into nourishment. That's why when you start to rise, life suddenly feels heavier. When you begin a new chapter, chaos appears. When you feel closest to a breakthrough, emotion surges in the opposite direction. This is not bad luck. It's a feeding cycle. The old entity cannot survive without your emotional output. It thrives on your reactions because emotion is its oxygen. Imagine it like this. Every time you get triggered, a circuit closes between you and your past. That flash of anger, That stab of jealousy. It's the old self plugging back into your power source. It doesn't even need your attention anymore. Only your feeling. Emotion is faster than thought. It bypasses logic and dives straight into vibration, which means the old entity doesn't need to convince you of anything. It just needs to make you feel. And once you feel it, you've paid. Think of the moments you've said, "I don't know why this keeps happening to me." It's because you keep paying the same emotional bill. Different story, same charge. The details change, but the feeling remains identical. Your boss becomes the new version of your critical parent. Your partner mirrors your old abandonment wounds. Your setbacks echo the same melody of inadequacy. The emotion is the common thread, not the people, not the place, not the event. Until you reclaim emotional authorship, your outer life remains a sequel to your inner past. The old self is sadistic in its simplicity. It doesn't want to harm you. It just wants to stay alive. And the surest way to stay alive is to keep you emotionally reactive. Because when you react, you return. You return to the old frequency, the old identity, the old vibration, and once you're there, it rests, it feeds, and it waits for the next wave. Their solution isn't suppression, it's transmutation. Energy cannot be destroyed, but it can be redirected. When emotion arises, resist the instinct to fix it. Observe it. Feel it fully without attaching a story to it. The story feeds the past. The pure sensation frees it. Step 1. Notice the charge. Where in your body does it live? In your chest, your stomach, your throat. Don't label it. Don't judge it. Just stay with it. Step 2. Breathe. Conscious breath rewires frequency faster than logic ever will. Each slow inhale loosens the chain that binds the emotion to its old meaning. With each exhale, you reclaim energy that was once trapped in the past. Step 3. Reframe the source. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this emotion trying to release through me?" Pain is not punishment. It's pressure leaving the system. Emotion isn't evidence of failure. It's proof of transformation. Step 4. Convert emotion into fuel. Every feeling, when fully felt, becomes raw energy. Sadness turns into clarity. Anger turns into movement. Fear turns into focus. Emotion is your most potent creative force, but only when it flows through you, not when it anchors inside you. Mastery begins when you stop spending emotion on repetition and start investing it in creation. The emotional economy is exact. Whatever you finance emotionally must return with interest. This is why suffering compounds, and why joy does too. The universe isn't punishing you with repeating patterns, it's merely settling your energetic accounts. When you stop paying the old frequencies with your reactions, they go bankrupt. When you stop investing in emotional debt, new wealth appears. Emotional wealth, energetic clarity, inner freedom. The old self can't follow you into peace. It doesn't know how to breathe there. Its ecosystem depends on turbulence, so when you refuse to react, it starves. When you bless what once triggered you, it dissolves. When you feel emotion without judgment, you reclaim your power. You are not here to avoid emotion. You are here to refine it, to turn feeling into frequency and frequency into form. The alchemist does not fear fire because they know it purifies. And when your emotions are no longer chaos but current, you become a conductor of divine power, because once you master emotion, you master vibration. And once you master vibration, reality begins to obey. But before the old entity releases you completely, it will try one final trick. It will tempt you to react through impulse, to live by reaction instead of creation. In the next chapter, we'll expose that illusion, the battle between reactive and creative consciousness. Chapter 6. Reactive versus creative consciousness. Every moment of your life is a fork in the road, one path carved by reaction, the other illuminated by creation. Most people, without realizing it, take the first path. They live as echoes, reflexes wearing human skin. Something happens, they react. Someone speaks, they respond. The world moves, and they chase after it. Reaction feels alive because it is charged with emotion. It feels urgent, necessary, real. But in truth, reaction is not life. It is repetition. It's your consciousness on autopilot, replaying yesterday's vibration through today's event. Creation, on the other hand, is slow, deliberate, and sovereign. It does not move from fear, but from vision. It does not chase experience, it generates it. To live creatively is to live from the inside out. To live reactively is to live from the outside in. And every time you react, you hand the steering wheel back to the old self, the puppet master we unmasked before. Reactive consciousness obeys. Creative consciousness commands. Your old self understands the power of reaction. It knows that a single emotional outburst can undo days of inner work. That one frustrated thought, one defensive word, one burst of fear can reopen the gates to its kingdom. So it sets traps, subtle ones, a late message, a small betrayal, a bill you didn't expect, an insult disguised as advice. Each is an invitation. Come back into the old vibration. Come back to anger. Come back to fear. And because most people live with their senses turned outward, they take the bait. They believe reality is happening to them. They let their eyes tell their minds what to think, and their minds tell their bodies what to feel. That chain reaction happens faster than thought, which is why the reaction feels automatic. But automatic means unconscious, and unconscious means powerless. Reactive consciousness is a mirror. It reflects the world as it is, never as it could be. It cannot imagine, it can only imitate. And until you transcend reaction, you will keep recreating what already exists. Observe yourself in conflict. Notice how quickly your body tenses, how fast your breath shortens, how instantly words appear in your mind demanding to be said. That's not you. That's programming. It's the nervous system replaying an ancient script, written by a younger you who learned to survive through defense. Every time you react, you reinforce that old program. And the more you repeat it, the deeper the groove becomes in your consciousness. Eventually, reaction becomes identity. You no longer have anger. You are anger. You no longer feel anxiety. You live as it. But awareness interrupts the pattern. If you can catch the instant before you react, you open a gap in time, a small doorway where freedom lives. That space between impulse and action is sacred. It's the birthplace of creation. Because in that breath, you remember that you are not the reaction, you are the awareness that witnesses it. The observer cannot be triggered. The observer simply sees, and in seeing, it transforms. To shift from reactive to creative consciousness, you must reclaim authorship over perception. Your senses are receivers, not rulers. You must teach them who's in command. Step 1. Pause. When life throws a stimulus, don't answer immediately. Pause for 3 breaths. The breath resets your frequency and suspends momentum. Reaction lives in speed. Creation lives in stillness. Step 2. Reinterpret. Ask yourself, what else could this mean? The reactive mind sees threat. The creative mind sees instruction. Every challenge is a coded opportunity to expand your capacity. When you reframe, you reclaim. Step 3. Respond from vision, not history. Before you speak, move, or decide, anchor in your intention. Ask, what outcome serves my highest state? Then act from that state. not from the wound that was just touched. Step 4. Stay above the noise. Reactive people are pulled by emotion. Creative beings move by inner order. Protect your inner stillness as if it were a temple. When you remain calm while chaos swirls, you emit a frequency that reorganizes reality itself. This is not suppression, it is mastery. The Stoics called it virtue. The mystics called it alignment. You may call it self-command, the quiet knowing that you no longer need the world to behave for you to remain whole. The reactive self is a servant, the creative self is a king. One bows to circumstance, the other bends circumstance to will. Reaction exhausts you because it tries to control what was never yours to command: other people, time, the past. Creation empowers you because it governs what always was, your state of being. Reality is not testing you, it is training you. Every situation that tempts you to react is a lesson in creation disguised as chaos. When you remain centered, you send a silent decree into the field. I choose frequency over frenzy. I choose authorship over impulse. And then, mysteriously, the world begins to calm around you. Why? Because the universe mirrors coherence. When the inside stabilizes, the outside aligns. The puppeteer loses its grip. The game of control ends. You move from pawn to player. And from that moment forward, nothing owns your peace, unless you pay for it with reaction. Because once you cease reacting, the old self can no longer touch you through chaos. So it will change tactics. It will whisper fear, the most ancient frequency of all, hoping to freeze you before you move forward. In the next chapter, we'll unveil that deception, the fear projection, how the old self transfers its terror into your mind to stop your evolution. Chapter 7. The Fear Projection. Fear has many disguises. It can sound like logic, feel like caution, or hide beneath the cloak of humility. But at its core, fear is not a warning. It's a transfer of energy. The old self doesn't want you to move forward because progress is death to it. So when it senses change approaching, it performs its oldest trick. It gives you its fear and convinces you it's yours. You feel it as hesitation, as the sudden doubt clouds clarity right before a breakthrough. As the voice that says, "This might not work. Maybe wait a little longer." You think you're protecting yourself, but what you're really doing is carrying the terror of your former identity. Fear, in truth, is the shadow of transformation, the echo left behind when the old frequency realizes its time is up. The old self was born from fear. Fear was its first breath, its survival instinct, its mother tongue. And like all living things, it wants to survive. But because it cannot exist in the higher vibrations of peace, it must pull you back into fear to breathe. Every time you're about to expand, to speak truth, to choose love, to act on vision, it panics. It whispers, "Don't go. You're not ready." You'll lose everything you feel, the tremor in your chest, the tightening in your throat, and mistake it for intuition. But intuition is calm. Fear is loud. Intuition invites. Fear interrupts. Intuition moves you forward. Fear freezes you still. The fear you feel is not a prophecy. It's a projection. It is the old frequency seeing its own death and casting that panic onto your nervous system. You're not scared of the unknown, you're scared of losing the known. And because your subconscious equates known with safe, it will protect the familiar, even if the familiar is suffering. That is how fear enslaves the mind, not through violence, but through comfort. Think of the times when you were closest to change, when you were about to leave the job, end the relationship, publish the work, follow the dream, and suddenly an invisible wall rose up inside you. The voice of reason turned into the voice of paralysis. Your body felt heavy. your mind flooded with worst-case scenarios. And then, right on cue, reality began to mirror that vibration. Unexpected obstacles, subtle delays, new reasons to wait. That's not a coincidence. That's energetic synchronization. The old frequency projects fear, you feel it, and the universe magnifies it through events. This is how timelines sustain themselves, through emotional resonance. So long as you accept fear as truth, you remain on the same timeline. Fear isn't trying to protect you, it's trying to preserve itself. It's the echo of an outdated identity, desperate to remain relevant. The tragedy is that most people confuse fear with guidance. They think, if I feel uneasy, it must be wrong. But discomfort is not danger, it's an expansion. And expansion always stretches the container of who you believe yourself to be. Every version of you must die for the next one to live, and fear is the sound of that death. How do you dissolve the fear projection? Not by fighting it, because resistance validates its existence. You transcend it by recognizing the sender. Step 1. Name the source. When fear arises, say inwardly, "This is not my fear. This is the old self projecting." That statement shifts identity, and identity is vibration. The moment you stop claiming fear as yours, its frequency loses access to your energy field. Step 2. Shift the perspective. Fear only lives in linear time. It belongs to the part of you that still measures future against past. Bring yourself back to the present moment through breath, touch, or observation. In the presence, fear has nowhere to anchor. It cannot survive in the now, because the now contains no past to reference. Step 3. Transmute the energy. Fear is just energy in disguise, compressed power waiting to be released. Feel it fully, without story or meaning. Let it shake, burn, move through the body. Don't suppress it. Liberate it. When energy moves, it transforms. Step 4. Recode it through faith. Faith is not belief. It is vibration. It is the confident stillness that says, "I don't need to see the bridge to know it exists." The moment you feel fear, practice responding with trust. You're not pretending to be fearless. You're remembering that fear was never yours to begin with. Every time you confront fear with awareness, you inherit the power it once used to control you. Each transmuted fear becomes raw creative energy, the very fuel that accelerates manifestation. The energy that once froze you now becomes the fire that moves you. The truth is, fear never belonged to you. It belonged to the part of you that was born before you knew your own light. It was a survival tool, nothing more. And now that you are aware, it has served its purpose. When fear whispers, listen, not to obey, but to decode. It's saying, a version of you is dying, and that is always cause for celebration, not retreat. So the next time your heart trembles, smile. Because the shaking means the old shell is cracking, the trembling means the frequency is shifting, and the fear you feel is simply the vibration of rebirth. Fear is not your enemy. It is the death rattle of your former limitations, and each time you walk through it, a universe on the other side begins to take shape. Because once you understand fear as projection, you reclaim the final piece of power the old self had over you. But there's one last game it will play, not through fear, but through illusion. It will mimic reality itself, reflecting your beliefs so perfectly you'll think the world is fixed. In the next chapter, we'll reveal how to see through that illusion. The chessboard of consciousness, where perception becomes the battlefield and awareness becomes the winning move. Chapter 8. The chessboard of consciousness. Every event in your life is a move on an invisible chessboard. Every thought, every reaction, every silence, a piece shifted in the great game between who you are and who you've been. You are both players. The higher self, infinite and composed, plays for evolution. The old self, reactive and afraid, plays for survival. And the board itself, reality, responds to whichever consciousness makes the stronger move. This is the chessboard of consciousness, the quiet arena where awareness meets illusion, where strategy replaces reaction, and where victory is not about domination, but integration. You are not at war with your shadow. You are learning to outthink it, with presence as your strategy, awareness as your weapon, and stillness as your checkmate. Most people play this game without realizing they're on the board. They mistake the pieces for reality. They think the argument, the failure, the delay, the betrayal are external accidents. They never see that these are the old self's moves, mirrored through circumstance, designed to pull them back into familiar vibration. The old entity, as you've learned, does not fight you directly. It plays through reflection. It manipulates perception, crafting outer events that trigger inner programs. Every coincidence that frustrates you, every loop that repeats, every person who mirrors your wound, those are the old self's pawns in motion. When you react, you move impulsively. You play the game blindfolded. You sacrifice peace to prove a point, truth to defend an illusion. And in that moment, the old self wins, not by strength, but by prediction. It knows your tendencies. It knows which thoughts make you panic, which memories make you shrink, which desires make you compromise. It's been played this match for years, until now, because once you become aware of the board, the entire game changes. Imagine life as a grand mirror. Every reflection you see, friend or foe, victory or failure, is not there to punish you, but to reveal your next move. The universe is not personal. It is mathematical, reflective, and precise. It does not give you what you want. It gives you what you are, vibrationally, emotionally, mentally. If there is chaos in your outer world, it's a move made by the old self to test your reaction. If there is stillness, it's a move made by your higher self to invite reflection. Both exist, so you may practice awareness, so you may learn to play with intelligence, not impulse. Every opponent is a mirror, every setback is a teacher, every tension is a test of vibration. When you see through appearances, you stop fighting pieces and start understanding the pattern. That's when consciousness evolves from player to grandmaster. The key is remembering this. You don't win the game by defeating others. You win by not being moved. The unmoved player becomes the axis around which the entire board rotates. To master the chessboard of consciousness, practice strategic awareness. Step 1. Observe the board before you move. When something challenges you, don't react immediately. Pause and watch how the pieces align. Ask, what is this moment showing me about myself? Life reveals its pattern to the patient observer. Step 2. Anticipate the old self's tactics. When you decide to elevate, expect the counter move, confusion, fatigue, fear, distraction. Recognize them not as failure, but as predictable strategies. When you can predict your ego, you disarm it. A mind exposed is a mind powerless. Step 3. Use stillness as your move. Silence is the most underrated strategy in existence. It disrupts momentum. It creates space between stimulus and response, the space where the higher self acts. Stillness confuses the old frequency because it cannot feed on calm. To pause is to play a move the lower self doesn't understand. Step 4. Shift from reaction to orchestration. Creative consciousness doesn't chase, it arranges. When you hold inner coherence, external reality begins to mirror it naturally. This is the essence of checkmate in spiritual lore. The old self still moves, but every move now serves your awakening. Even chaos becomes choreography. Step 5. Remember that surrender is a strategy. In this game, surrender isn't giving up, it's aligning up. When you release the need to control outcomes, you rise to a higher level of play where outcomes obey you. You stop fighting at the board and start designing it. The old self was never your enemy. It was your training partner. The opponent designed by your own consciousness to sharpen your awareness. Every trigger it created forced you to grow. Every emotional check taught you patience. Every apparent loss trained you to think, feel, and see beyond appearances. And one day, you realized there was never a war at all. Only a classroom disguised as conflict. Only a mirror teaches you to recognize your reflection as divine. The Grand Master of Consciousness doesn't destroy his opponent. He integrates it. He sees that both black and white squares are part of the same board, light and shadow, dancing for the same purpose, expansion. And that is the paradox of mastery. You win the game the moment you stop needing to win. Because awareness was always the real victory. Now that you've learned to read the board, the old self no longer has the advantage. You've transcended reaction, outmaneuvered fear, and mastered awareness. But one challenge remains: the transformation itself. You cannot carry the old pieces into a new game. In the next chapter, we'll enter the metaphysics of rebirth, the sacred process of dissolving the old frequency completely and stepping into the new reality as a creator reborn. Chapter 9. The Metaphysics of Rebirth. Every ending is a disguise. What we call loss, the universe calls initiation. What feels like death is only the shell cracking so the light inside can breathe. You have spent your life mistaking transformation for tragedy, but nothing real can die, only the temporary can fade. And now, as you reach the edge of your old identity, the universe asks you to understand this sacred paradox. Rebirth is not becoming new, it's remembering what was never old. Your consciousness is eternal, but each version of you, every personality, every mask, every frequency, is temporary clothing. And every time you outgrow an outfit, life calls you to shed it. You resist because you've worn it for so long it feels like skin. But what you call falling apart is really your truth breaking through the costume of your conditioning. Rebirth begins the moment you stop patching the shell and start listening to what's trying to emerge from within it. You cannot enter a new reality dressed in the energy of the old one. Yet most people try to carry everything forward: the guilt, the story, the resentment, the labels, hoping to be reborn without dying. That's why their transformation feels incomplete. They are dragging corpses of former selves through new doorways, then wondering why the air feels heavy. Rebirth demands surrender, and surrender is misunderstood. It's not about defeat, it's about dissolution. The self that clings cannot evolve because evolution requires space. Imagine consciousness as water. When poured into a new vessel, it must take a new shape. But if you fear the space between containers, if you grip to the old cup, you'll call the formlessness death. That's what the old self fears most, the emptiness between identities. It will tell you you're lost when you are actually in transition. It will whisper, you're nothing, when you're finally everything. Because rebirth doesn't begin in certainty. It begins in the void. The void is not punishment. It is incubation. It is where the old frequencies dissolve and the new consciousness gestates. It is silence pregnant with creation. There's a moment in every awakening where you feel the universe has gone quiet. Meditations lose their magic. Affirmations stop working. The signs disappear. You begin to wonder, did I lose my connection? But this silence is not abandonment. It's alignment. You're not being ignored. You're being purified. When the soul is rebirthing, the universe withdraws external validation so that you may learn to trust your inner signal. It's the spiritual equivalent of a mother eagle pushing her young from the nest, not to harm them, but to teach them to fly. The old frequency, deprived of attention, starts to disintegrate. And because it's built of emotional residue, you feel its dissolution as emptiness. That's the detox of consciousness. It's not depression, it's data deletion. Your system is clearing files that no longer match your new vibration. But here's the danger. Most people can't handle the silence. They rush back to noise, the old habits, the old identities, just to feel something. And by doing so, they resurrect the very self they were about to transcend. The true initiate learns to stand still in the void, to breathe through the death of the familiar, to allow silence to shape a new signal, because that stillness is the womb of rebirth. So how do you die without dying? How do you consciously dissolve the old self? Step 1. Acceptance. Stop trying to fix what's fading. When something begins to fall away, a relationship, a habit, a way of thinking, don't resurrect it. Let it collapse with grace. You are not being punished, you are being refined. Step 2. Emotional cremation. Every feeling you've outgrown must be burned through awareness. Grief, anger, shame, they are the ashes of former frequencies. Feel them fully, then release them to light. To suppress them is to keep fragments of your old self alive. To feel them consciously is to liberate their energy for new creation. Step 3. Rewrite the meaning of death. The end of a version of you is not loss, it's completion. The caterpillar doesn't mourn its cocoon, it leaves it behind. So must you. Each death is a graduation in disguise. Say thank you to what's leaving. Then step forward unclothed, unarmed, unafraid. Step 4. Embody the new frequency. Rebirth is not a theory, it's an embodiment. Speak differently, move differently, respond differently. The body must learn what the spirit already knows. Your new life begins when your nervous system stops expecting the past. And finally, celebrate the in-between. The silence between identities is holy ground. It's the space where the infinite whispers, "Welcome home." You are not a human being learning to awaken. You are consciousness remembering itself through the art of dying and being reborn. Every collapse, every silence, every heartbreak was the sound of divine architecture rearranging itself to fit the shape of your higher frequency. The old self was never an enemy. It was the womb that carried you here. It protected you until you could protect yourself. And now it bows, not in defeat, but in reverence. Because even the shadow knows when to kneel before the light. This is the sacred cycle written into the cosmos. Birth, forgetting, awakening, death, rebirth. Again and again, until awareness becomes your only identity. And when that happens, you no longer chase transformation. You are transformation. You no longer seek light. You radiate it. You no longer fear endings, because you have become the eternal beginning that lives inside them. You realize the game was never about escaping death, but learning to recognize life as something that never ends. Because rebirth isn't a finish line, it's the preparation for sovereignty. Now that you've dissolved the old frequency, you must learn how to inhabit the new one, not as a visitor, but as its master. In the final chapter, we'll enter the ultimate state of creation, the sovereign mind. The realm where thought, emotion, and energy move as one, and reality obeys your inner command.
Epilogue. There comes a silence after the storm, not the silence of emptiness, but of arrival. The winds of doubt, have spent their breath, the echoes of the old self have faded into the distance, and what remains is awareness, vast, unhurried, eternal. You sit now upon the silent throne, the inner seat of sovereignty that was always yours. No crown rests upon your head, because light does not need gold to announce itself. Your authority is not in word, but in stillness. Your power is not in effort, but in alignment. You no longer chase meaning. You emanate it. You no longer seek love. You radiate it. You no longer beg the universe to remember you, because you have remembered yourself. You are the meeting point between heaven and earth, the voice through which infinity learns to speak in form. Every breath you take sends ripples through the field. Every thought is a seed. Every emotion is a prayer made visible. Look around you now. Nothing has changed, and yet everything has. The world hasn't become new. You have. And because consciousness is the root of matter, the branches of reality will soon bend to match your new vibration. You've walked through illusion, outsmarted the ghost of your past, burned through fear, and crossed the void that most never dare to face. And on the other side, you did not find another world. You found yourself as the source of all worlds. The game was never about becoming worthy of creation. It was about realizing that creation was waiting for you to stop pretending you weren't divine. So now, when you speak, may your words carry the weight of awareness. When you act, may your movement ripple with purpose. When you rest, may you remember that existence itself breathes through you. Because the throne of consciousness is not above the clouds. It is the still point behind your eyes, the quiet knowing within your chest, the sacred observer that watches all and needs nothing. And from that throne, you reign, not as ruler of others, but as the master of your own light. The story is complete. The sovereign has awakened. The mirror has cleared. And all that remains is you, the one who sees, the one who knows, the one who is.